Support for WUWM podcasts comes from University School of Milwaukee, fulfilling a values-based mission of developing learners, fostering leaders, and preparing citizens for pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. More information at usm.org/mission.
You're listening to Lake Effect Spotlight from WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR station. Here's one of our favorite conversations about what's happening in the city.
You may have heard that one of Milwaukee's largest landlords is in big legal trouble.
The city of Milwaukee is suing an out-of-state corporate landlord, Highgrove Holdings Management. It owns hundreds of properties. This lawsuit could set new precedent for how Milwaukee handles what it calls negligent landlords.
David Tomblin, founder of Highgrove Holdings Management LLC, owns over 200 rental properties here in Milwaukee. But lawsuits brought by the city and major lenders could ultimately take those properties away. These lawsuits are not the beginning of this story. They follow a years-long campaign by Common Ground, a nonpartisan advocacy organization that united Tomblin's tenants against him. WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez and Sam Woods spent a few months with Common Ground and some of Tomblin's tenants to learn about him, what he represents, and how tenants took back their power. This is part one of How to Evict Your Landlord.
Our story starts here, in a home on the north side of Milwaukee, 23rd and Keefe, with Deshawn Harris.
Stand to yourself is the best way anyway, you know. So
Deshawn is 56, but you'd never guess. She has 2 kids, 3 grandkids, and luckily for us, speaks in sound bites.
I don't have any problems with anyone. I try not to be a problem. It's easy to get in trouble and hard to get out that mess.
She's lived here for over 15 years, and she says she likes the neighborhood. Right across the street is an active church. Her next-door neighbor, Ms. Wanda, has an immaculate yard and garden. There's a corner store down the block that's been remodeled, and good vibes all around, except inside Deshawn's house.
There's a bullet hole right here, too, y'all.
Is that the one that came in from the window?
Uh-huh.
That you were talking about?
Yeah, and it's still in the wall. The bullet is still in the wall.
She says the window with the bullet hole didn't get fixed for 5 months. And then there's the hole under her front porch.
You can see it. Real.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It doesn't look like a hole. It looks like a crater. I think that's what took out the dinosaurs.
But currently, the biggest issue in her home is that her bathtub's knobs are stripped.
I can't
take a shower.
I can't. I have to use this bathroom sink and keep it real. Go in the kitchen.
She showers by getting a bucket and walking either to the kitchen sink or bathroom sink. She told her landlord about this issue months ago, but the issue still isn't fixed.
When I first moved up in here in 2009, August 15th, I was paying $525. It was owned by Bobby Robinson.
Deshawn, what are you paying for rent today?
$925.
The same property, maybe even in worse condition.
My check is only $974 a month. Now take $925 out of that. My phone bill is $60. I got a gas and light bill too.
Every month you're just sinking a little bit more.
I'm sinking more and more in the hole.
Maybe you're thinking, this home sounds like a mess and expensive, so why not move? Well, Deshawn has tried public housing and private housing, but trying to find an affordable apartment in Central City, Milwaukee is not easy. And when it comes to living like this, a giant hole under her front porch, not being able to shower in her own home, bullet holes in her dining room wall.
Was I making that up?
You are not making that up.
She's not alone.
Imagine how the other tenants in them houses look.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Repair holes in foundation and roof, replace back stairs, install fence around the yard, address sewage backup, exterminate pests.
These are complaints from other renters who all have one thing in common. They all have the same landlord, David Tomblin.
Fix electrical problems, blown out fuses, and exterminate pests.
Tomblin owns a property company called Highgrove Holdings, along with about 12 other LLCs, and altogether, he's got over 200 properties in Milwaukee. These properties are riddled with code violations, and he also owes the city over $300,000 in back taxes and millions more to lenders. The homes he owns are an eyesore in already disinvested communities looking to rebuild, and a nightmare to live in for tenants tenants like Deshaun Harris.
He paint a picture like he's, like he A1, like he a good guy, as he say. I'm a good guy, but behind closed doors, you got Jekyll and Hyde.
I'm Sam Woods.
And I'm Jimmy Gutierrez. We're reporters with WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. We've learned a lot about David Tomblin, the real estate investor from California who bought into Milwaukee almost 10 years ago. We've also learned a lot about his business model.
You know the one. The one where out-of-state landlords buy up blocks of property at a time, usually in under-resourced neighborhoods, and keep them in run-down conditions, renting to tenants without many choices.
Or power.
And over the next 3 weeks, we're going to look into David Tomblin, how he built up a massive housing portfolio in Milwaukee.
And how it all came crashing down.
And how at the center of it all was tenant organizing, building power, and tapping into a little-used law.
It wasn't shocking to see somebody from California buying houses in Milwaukee.
This is John Johnson.
We had seen buyers from California, the Chicago area, Texas, and other parts of the country really since the mortgage foreclosure crisis really got going in the very early 2010s.
Johnson is a public policy research fellow at Marquette University. And Milwaukee's housing market, the comings and goings, is kind of his jam. He remembers when David Tomblin bought into the city back in 2017.
If you look at the early versions of his website, you see he's suggesting, meeting with people in groups of 20 or fewer in person to pitch them on this investment opportunity that he's identified, which is to buy cheap houses as rentals in cities that are not doing so well.
Here's kind of how this works. Our out-of-state investor buys up a portfolio of properties. He tells a group of people, his investors, to trust him that with minimal investment, they'll see maximum returns. And they usually buy in low-income, predominantly black neighborhoods. This model, Johnson says, started in southern cities, but eventually reached the Rust Belt in places like St. Louis and Indianapolis.
I would say largely third-tier cities that have pretty old housing stock and aren't really growing. In many cases are shrinking. And they realize that even though you don't have these conditions that on paper would lead to growing property values and growing amounts you can charge for rent, you get really favorable rent-to-home value ratios from the perspective of the landlord in these cities.
And that's what landlords like David Tomblin saw in Milwaukee. Expensive rents, growing demand, cheap housing stock.
They said on their website for investors that they were spending $35,000 on average per property, including rehab. So they were truly buying some of the cheapest properties in the city at that time.
He was telling his investors that they could expect up to 18% return on their investments. And for a while, this might have been working. We don't really know. But what we do know is that there has been a ton of code violations out of his properties today. Johnson says there's a name for these kinds of landlords: milkers.
Because they'll take a property, they'll spend as absolutely little on maintaining it as possible while collecting that rent, which we already talked about is often relatively high compared to the purchase price for the home.
Tomblin was not the first out-of-state or private equity landlord to circle Milwaukee on a map, buy up portfolios of homes on the north side, and do relatively little to no upkeep.
From before the mortgage foreclosure crisis from like 1990 through 2005, about 80% of the houses in Milwaukee were owner-occupied, so that includes single-family homes and duplexes. And that dropped to like 68% during the long fallout from the mortgage foreclosure crisis. We actually lost homeowners year over year, every year through 2018.
What he's saying here is that Milwaukee has only recently started to bounce back, with more people buying and owning their own homes. But that doesn't help people like Deshaun Harris, whose rent makes it impossible to save for a down payment. The more we talked with Johnson, the more curious I became about who David Tomblin is and what he represents. One thing that did stand out about him, opposed to other out-of-state landlords, is that his tenants know him. Deshaun says it's not unusual for her to get him on the phone. He also claimed to be friends with the city's mayor, Cavalier Johnson, and he claimed to be part of Milwaukee's Rotary Club.
And how can we not be curious of the claims that this business, Highgrove Holdings, was also women and minority owned? Well, John Johnson couldn't confirm any of this. He also wanted to know. So we thought it was time for a little road trip.
Let's go meet David Tomblin.
Since we know a little about David Tomblin at this point, we thought we would call around to the people he claims to know.
Good afternoon, Mayor Johnson's office. How can I help you? Hello, Rotary Club of Milwaukee. This is Mary.
Hi, it's Jeff Fleming.
Jeff's the mayor's spokesperson. Hey, Jeff. This is Jimmy Gutierrez from Milwaukee Public Radio. And I was just trying to get a better sense if the mayor did have a personal relationship or was familiar with David Tomblin.
With David Tomblin? Not that I'm aware of.
And so from your understanding, the mayor is unfamiliar with him?
Yes. The mayor, to my knowledge, the mayor has not had any contact other than possibly incidental contact somewhere.
My name is Jimmy Gutierrez. I'm a reporter over at Milwaukee Public Radio.
Oh, hi, Jimmy. I got your voicemail. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Mary said Tomlin's been a member of the Rotary Club for about 2 years, but hasn't really left an impression.
We have 370 members, so I recognize him, but basically, mostly what I know about David is what I read in the papers.
We called his Milwaukee-based office, sent multiple texts, sent multiple emails to multiple different email accounts. Then I was directed to a local PR team.
Hi. If you record your name and reason for calling, I'll see if this person is available.
Jimmy Gutierrez, Milwaukee Public Radio reporter.
Thanks. Please stay on the line.
Crickets here too.
I'm sorry, this person is not available. If you would like to leave an additional message, please reply after the tone.
Hey, Valia. I'm trying to figure out who else I can call that might have a personal relationship with the man, so.
And I honestly don't know who that would be. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't really have, I don't know too much more.
In the last little bit, we've been playing phone tag with Tomlin's PR team. And if we do talk with him, we will share that. But for now, we still have questions. So if we can't talk to the people who know the man, maybe we can talk to the people who know what it's like living next to a Tomblin property.
I would say we've been a neighbor, and I would qualify it as a concerned neighbor. Not a nosy neighbor, but a concerned neighbor.
Larry and Sharon Adams.
Our approach has been being good, concerned citizens, using the talents we have in the area of community development, bringing people together, looking at housing, starting gardens, being caring.
Larry and Sharon co-founded Walnut Way over 20 years ago, revitalizing Milwaukee's Lindsay Heights neighborhood. Really, they transformed blighted properties into places of pride. And they have recently retired, but that hasn't stopped them from working. They started Adams Garden Park, which is this huge project that has a bunch of things going on, new residential homes, commercial properties, but there's also an art walk and a sculpture garden. Big dreams for a neighborhood that's been systematically disinvested from, and one that we had to go see. We're on Fondy. We're right across the street from Johnson's Park, and we're here to see another
This is
park.
a walkway to that property, and it's an anticipation that this new property development will be special, awesome, and inviting and welcoming.
We have a sculpture garden that is within the same proximity right across the street.
We had 3 columns total here. What did the last 2 say?
We got realizing that in repurposing myself, I have to depend on those that are behind me and those that are seeking to be in front of me as my support. I mean, I take that as if you want to be your best self, it's going to take people around you. You can't just do it yourself. You know, you'll need, among other things, some strong neighbors. You just need others.
This sculpture garden is still coming together, but you can see the vision. There is one problem: the boarded up, abandoned house right next door. The top porch or the balcony doesn't look like is on too well, does it, Sam?
No, I'm not going to stand on that. Looks like it's about to come down. The front porch as well has got a little bit of a lean to it.
Yeah, all the boards are pretty busted up. There's a sign on here: Highgrove Holdings, your place to call home, apply to rent now.
Well, you have to do some work with the windows, like probably put
some?
those in, yeah.
On a balance sheet, the Adams' goal is pretty similar to Tomblin: buy a portfolio of properties. The approach is what's different. Here, right off of Fond du Lac Avenue, they want to activate this neighborhood. More land stewardship, more programming, more dreaming. And for the longest time, they've wanted to buy this eyesore, as they call it, the house Tomblin owns. But every call became more and more frustrating.
I've later learned that it is a holding company. So having a holding company, I don't know of the various investors that have participated in this endeavor. So I don't put it in a singular action. I put it in a plural action of those that would take and choose to have larger proceeds of their investment at the cost or missed cost of someone else's dignity.
A plural action, not singular. Multiple people benefit here.
You hear me going, because you asked about Tomblin, but it's much larger than that. It's a holding company with investors. And for years, we could not figure out who are these investors? Who would do something like this? Have no accountability to it, only to gain profit. Yes, Tomblin took advantage of us, our neighbors, our people, but he was that type of person to take advantage, break the laws, and feel invincible.
So we just got back into the car, took a look at the art walk, Adams Garden Park, a lot of the design stuff that they had going on, as well as Tomblin's property or Highgrove Holdings property. You know, when I talked with Sharon and Larry, they definitely had a lot to say about folks from out of state that purchased up a lot of property. Obviously, they don't do much with it when we're looking at the Highgrove Holdings property that we just were at, and kind of what that says to a community, what that says to the people that make it up, and then also their ability to keep up this momentum that obviously they've done so much. They've done so much to turn this neighborhood around and to make it a desirable spot for people outside of the neighborhood, but also a point of pride for the people that live here. The impacts Tomblin and Highgrove have had on people in neighborhoods in the city are tough to overstate. And there's still this itch that we both have, I'd say, since we couldn't talk to him. But what we found out as we were reporting is that there's a reason why he may not want to talk with us.
Yeah, and that reason is because everyone wants to talk with him right now. To keep it brief, it seems all of his dealings in Milwaukee have finally caught up to him. Multiple lawsuits from his investors, his contractors, and even his tenants.
Hello, hello. Welcome, Common Ground, the Community Baptist Church. Glad to have you with us. Thank God for you. Well, hello, young lady.
On a cold Wednesday night in February, on the corner of North Ave and Sherman Boulevard, tenants of David Tomblin got together.
Good to have you tonight. God bless you.
Common Ground is a local organization that you're going to learn a lot more about, but they do work around a bunch of issues, including organizing tenants. Tonight, on the meeting's agenda was Highgrove Holdings founder, David Tomblin.
And this is where we ran back into Deshawn Harris, David Tomblin's tenant from the beginning of the story. She was here to speak to the crowd about what it's like living in a Tomblin property. How are you feeling? Are you nervous about speaking your piece, or do you feel like it's about time?
It's about time that someone heard my voice. I've been trying to get help for years about this person, David Tomblin, and I kept running into dead end walls. All the resources they gave me, it was limited. So God sent the right people, Common Ground, Tenant United. I'm so glad because I don't have to fight this battle by myself because this is a war. You know what I'm saying? So I feel good about it.
The crowd was lively, maybe a few hundred people, feeding off the collective power in the room. It started with a roll call of partners in attendance, then speakers organizing other actions across the city, and then finally, the topic of David Tomblin.
Tomblin claims that Highgrove is woman and minority owned.
They spoke about the fact that 40% of his Milwaukee properties are boarded up, that he's backed by private equity investors, and that a lot of those investors have since sued him. They talked about the fact that he owes over $300,000 in back taxes to the city of Milwaukee. And then it was Deshawn's turn to speak.
Okay. Here we go. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Deshawn Harris. I'm a tenant of Highgrove. I'm with Tenant United.
Deshawn was the last tenant to speak, and she started by talking about the troubles she's had in Tomlin's property.
The bullet is still in my dining room wall. I have a big hole up under my front porch that's big enough to bury 4 or 5 people up under it. It's been open for 6 years like that. The backyard, it looks like a jungle.
She went on and talked about how it made her feel to live in a house like this.
Out of place, my livelihood, mental anguish, upset, and it's despicable that no one should have to live on his property that rent from him. Should live like that. Tenants are uniting. No more blaming us, intimidating us, overcharging us, ignoring us, hurting us. We're taking back our power.
It turns out that Common Ground and Tomlin's tenants had a plan, one they had been working on for months, one with a powerful partner, the city of Milwaukee.
Please stand if you think it's time for us to evict David Tomblin. Please stand. Let's go.
The plan? Evict David Tomblin from his own properties. This all came after Common Ground gave Tomblin 3 tests.
First, fix issues reported by 29 Highgrove tenants, starting with safety concerns. Second, create a plan to demolish or sell 26 of his worst abandoned properties. And third, pay his taxes.
He failed all 3. And that's what triggered Common Ground and the city's attorney's office coming together on one of the oldest, most aggressive tenant protection laws on the books, a little-used law called receivership.
It basically allows the city to appoint a person or organization to receive Tomlin's properties, fixing them up and making them livable for tenants. And if you have more questions about how something like this is possible, don't worry, there's plenty more coming on this next episode. But bottom line, if this happens, David Tomblin will not be Deshawn's landlord for the foreseeable future.
I came a long way from not getting justice to part of justice, seeing it halfway through. That means a lot, than not having no help at all. And more importantly, my voice is not the only one that's going to be heard.
This level of organizing didn't just happen. Next episode, we're looking into how someone who's been walked all over takes back power and evicts their landlord, and how they build up enough power to take on someone like David Tomblin, who owns over 200 properties in the city and has a bevy of out-of-state investors.
That was part 1 of How to Evict Your Landlord, a 3-part series produced by WUWM's Jimmy Gutierrez and Lake Effect's Sam Woods. Parts 2 and 3 will air on the next 2 Thursdays only here on Lake Effect.
That was the Lake Effect Spotlight podcast. It comes from your local NPR station, WUWM. Subscribe to the Lake Effect Spotlight podcast to hear more great stories about Milwaukee.